Hi, I'm Emily,
Hello, I'm Renee,
and you are listening to the Glimmer Hunters podcast.
where we talk about glimmers and how they fill our cup.
Today, we thought it might be interesting to talk about how to use glimmers as a wayfinding tool.
Yep. To get out my prejudice first.
Yeah.
So wayfinding is, some people are really across it, some people aren't. In a really basic way, wayfinding is where people put the exits above doors in buildings and how people put the signs around universities so you can find the building.
Literally.
Literally wayfinding.
Yep.
And then in a beautiful global way, it's about how people navigated their lives as via the stars, how people,
Yeah, used
moved
it.
around.
Yeah, like we're guided essentially following
Geographically, physically.
Yeah. And I guess today we kind of want to get a bit more
Spiritual.
metaphorical about it and explore how we both personally have used glimmers sort of without really knowing it, I guess, subconsciously, just sort of followed the things that light us up to get us to this point in life.
Yeah, I think because that's the beauty of hindsight, like wayfinding, you can use it going forward, absolutely. But what we're covering today is more what happened with hindsight. And so what historically has been in our past, like when we helicopter up and look backwards, what pointed us to this, where we are today. And I think that's super fun. And I have a bit of a philosophy or something that this is steeped in deeper, which also has come from the past, is a book I read. Oh God, like I was in Dubai. So 15 years ago, walked into the bookshop and saw a book by Naomi Wolf called The Treehouse. And
I'm only laughing because I remember when you gave it to me and you were like, this is really a gift for me so that you can read it and then we can talk about it together. But it was a gift for both of us.
my gifts are quite, it's important we all win.
Yeah.
And the reason I picked it up off the shelf is, one, it has a really pretty cover. And then two, it talks about Naomi Wolf's relationship with her dad in a really positive way. And at the time, I didn't have a positive relationship with my dad. So I thought, I wonder what that's like. And then the book, 25 Words or Less, the book is 10 chapters of Naomi Wolf's dad, Leonard Wolf, and his life lessons. So it's like an artist's guide to creating your work, which you can easily, obviously, apply to life. But one of his philosophies is the heart's desire, and the heart wants what it wants. And in their family, if the heart desired it, it happened. So at one point they had, very little money, living in San Francisco, and Leonard desired a horse. And so they bought a horse and kept it on their house block from memory. And then when Naomi was a kid, she wanted to hand make ice cream. And so they bought a churn and they all took turns. I think they pack it like internally with ice and salt and churn it for hours and hours. And they made ice cream. It was glorious. They popped it on top of the cupboard and they never used it again. But there was no chiding. You weren't in trouble for doing this because the heart's desire was what it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So fast forward to now, and this is why I think with Glimmer Hunters as wayfinding is, the thing is with glimmer hunting and glimmers is they don't care for the practicality.
Yeah.
And when we think about glimmers, I think in a really conscious way, we think of sometimes commercially what we've been told, and that does feel good. Like we always talk about, having a shower and sliding into fresh sheets, which is lovely. But we also, we did a shout out on social media as well as about your unusual glimmers, and maybe they're ones that aren't social conditioned, but they're also the wayfinding ones.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think because they speak or they land, like how they land specifically in our systems, because I think that's so unique to everyone. So while I think, those sort of sliding into fresh sheets, having a sip of coffee, I feel like they're those kind of universal glimmers that appeal to, generally a lot of people. But I think, what you're talking about is these like really specific ones that have really, shaped or carved out some sort of path for an individual.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just trying to think. Yes, that's what I was going to say, is that It's not like also because Glimmer, because you can use Glimmer hunters as wayfinding, but it's not really, I don't think, as basic as, when I was 5, I was really interested in the law, so I became a lawyer.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was 10, I was really into accounts, so I became an accountant.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that. I mean, I definitely can apply Glimmer hunting and wayfinding to my career, but
Mm.
it's not a conventional way because how it lands, like you said, in your nervous system isn't going to conform to
Societal expectations
yeah,
or,
it doesn't understand a university vocational,
yeah,
catalogue.
100%. Yeah. But also I think this is why some of us get a bit mixed up as well and on the wrong path sometimes because we're so conditioned to follow this trajectory and these like certain paths but something about it is not sitting well within us. We can't really articulate that sometimes.
Mhm.
And I mean, it does might seem a bit lofty to bring it all back to glimmers, but I think it's just, yeah, how things are making your nervous system feel like, and why. I guess that's like something to explore in all this. Like if it's making you feel on edge all the time, that might be a good clue. As same as if you're feeling like joy or you're feeling good or you're just feeling like you're on the right path, that something's lighting you up. That's probably something to listen to a bit more often. And it can be hard to listen to that when, yeah, you're getting all this social conditioning and messaging,
100%, like, point in hand, and I remember learning about this years ago, is, you come across a little kid or a young adult,
Mm.
and they like animals, quote, unquote, and then the person always says, "You should become a vet."
Yeah.
And then the upshot is being a vet is dealing with sick animals and or putting them down, which is kind of the opposite of liking animals.
Yeah.
And so Isla likes animals, and
Mhm.
people say to her, "You should be a vet." And she already has it nipped in the bud. She says, "No, because I don't like the insides."
Smart, Isla. Very,
Uh-huh.
very smart.
Perfect example, though, like someone loves to be near animals, absolute glimmer, and then
Yeah.
social conditioning says you should be a vet,
Yeah.
opposite of.
Yes. And I
Not
think
opposite. Of course, you can love animals,
and be a
each
vet.
to their own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think that that's also an interesting point is that we don't have to always make a career out of something just because we like it. Like we can just do things for fun, just for just for the joy of it, just for that playfulness of it. I think that there's some kind of yeah, I don't know. There's some kind of thing going on at the moment where it's like you have to have a side hustle. You have to turn everything that you have like a hobby has to become a side hustle. Can we just do it because we like it? Like it just makes us feel good and it's fun.
Yeah, and I wonder as well, I'm going all over the shop here, but, um, I've been thinking and leaning into masculine and feminine energy.
Hmm.
So not biological, not in that sense, but as in or not physiological rather, but, as in if we were to accept that the masculine energy is strength and brute force and, which is like plowing through, like getting stuff done, and then feminine energy is working with the flow,
Mm.
not strong arming it. Um, Glimmer hunters respond very well to a feminine energy of
Mm.
the flow,
Mhm.
and that's the thing as well, is when you do try and you can try and like, you can definitely gather the data on your glimmers and then piece it together, in a really practical way, like, you like A, B, and C, and it turns into this vocation, absolutely, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be like that. It can like you said, it doesn't have to end up in some kind of commercial empire.
Or some kind of like, meaningful path or, like something that took you and like even though we're going to
Yes.
explore that, like it's worth keeping in mind that it can just be just some things that that light you up.
Yeah.
And you've discovered this, over the years
Yes, exactly, and
or
maybe it
just more recently.
yeah, yeah, and maybe it is about your purpose, and maybe it isn't. And I saw earlier this year Elizabeth Gilbert talking,
Mm.
when she came to Sydney, and she was talking about purpose. And I think in the US, purpose is a much more talked about, bigger deal. I don't think we really focus on it that much here,
Mm.
in a good way. I think it's positive. But she was saying she was holding the ladder for some guy, a random guy that looked like he was wobbly on the ladder. She held it for like 30 minutes. He never knew that she was there. As he came down, she ducked off. And then she said, "What if that was my purpose to save this guy's life?" That end. And then she makes this joke,
Mm.
but the woman that's going to save the guy with the ladder, she lives in New York and he's in LA. How are we going to get her there? I know, we'll make her into an author and she'll go on a book tour and she'll be out for a walk.
That was her entire purpose of
Done.
her entire journey of all she's achieved.
Yeah.
All came back to holding the ladder.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
all a side joke
Yeah.
to the main event, which is the man with the
Yeah.
ladder, which I thought was so lovely because it just takes that pressure off.
Yeah, it just diffuses the whole seriousness of it and the whole, like, weightiness of, like, your purpose and like all that sort of,
Yeah.
it could just be, it can just be a bit more lighthearted than that as well.
Yeah, and then tracking the feeling as well, because
Mm,
sometimes glimmers is what the actual glimmer is, but then sometimes it's calibrating to what feels good,
mm.
and that can be used as wayfinding as well.
I feel like that can be used, yeah, definitely as some useful data gathering as far as like just on yourself, like to know. So if you are in a bit of a stressed out state, like, you can use that knowledge to calm yourself down as well.
Mm,
Mm.
yep, and I know you were saying earlier, about friendships, relationships, and using glimmer hunting for that.
Yeah, so I have this theory that I've been thinking about lately, um, in terms of when you're around certain people and it's just easy, the conversation flows, you feel good, you like walk away feeling, if, your cup is filled when you leave those conversations, and then on the flip side of that, there's some people that just you feel on edge around, like no matter how many times you meet them or spend time with them, there's just something that feels a bit off with that situation, and so my theory is that perhaps we use glimmers as a wayfinding tool with our friendships. So we gravitate towards the people that give us that safe feeling, and that, and we sort of veer away from the people that don't, even though we might have to be around them just due to proximity of whatever, like work, certain situations. But, even in like group situations, you always sort of find yourself gravitating towards the same sort of people because of the way I think they make you feel. I have a really random example of this. One day I was in the supermarket in Potts Point, which was my local supermarket at the time, and I walked past this man and like I just had this visceral response,
Mm.
like, and he was kind of like almost a mean character out of like a villainous character out of a movie. Like he had this like leather jacket and this like leather sort of hat. He was really like,
Oh my god, all the hairs on my arms
this is what
sticking up.
I did. Like when
Ah.
and I've never, I mean, it sounds really random and weird, but like I've never had this visceral response where everything in my body was like, get away from this person. Move as far away from this person as possible, as quickly as possible. It was just the most bizarre thing. The only time it's ever happened to me in my entire life. And I was like, alarm bells just went off in my body straight away. And I've reflected on this over the years. I'm like, I wonder if this person has like harmed other people. Like I've really sensed that. And I felt like that was like, I guess it's like using triggers as a wayfinding tool in some way. It's like, get away,
100%.
get away. Um, Yet on the flip side, that's an extreme example of that. But then on the flip side, I think, yeah, it's just the way you gravitate towards certain people. And yeah, and I think there's a lot of talk about, I've seen this on Instagram a bit lately where people are like, pay less attention to what people say or do, but how do they make you feel? And I think there's,
Maya Angelou.
yes,
Mhm.
people will forget what you said, but they'll
They won't
forget
forget
how you made them feel. Yeah, it ties into that idea that, just to be a bit more conscious about how your system feels around certain people.
Yeah, I think calibrating your body is an integral part of this because you have to feel it in your body,
Mm.
and that's another thing with glimmer hunting as well. Feeling a glimmer is, and Professor Selena Bartlett talked about the central nervous system and how it's a physiological thing with the chemical overlay and receptors and science, which I don't have enough knowledge on.
What?
Yeah, body.
Yeah.
Um, but landing physically, and if you think about it, there are a zillion idioms, of like someone ran over my grave, gave me
Mm,
tingles, made my stomach
mm.
turn.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of visceral, where it goes through your body.
Yeah, you
Cold
just talked about,
sweat, hot shame,
yeah,
hot flush.
yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff, yeah,
Mm.
and that's a response, right? That's a nervous system response.
Yeah, and the body doesn't like a lie because the body doesn't
Yeah,
need to.
and that's that whole idea as well of, the body keeps a score, with trauma, like
Yes.
storing, trauma in your body.
Pit of my stomach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sick to my
yeah, sick to my
stomach.
stomach.
Word stuck in my throat.
Yeah.
Mm. I think we always overlook that. And one thing I've always tried to do with Isla is to feel into her body to calibrate.
Mm.
Like, how did that person make you feel? Like,
Yes, and I think that's a lot what somatic therapy, which we'll get to later, talks about as well, like how to move things through your body, through the somatic nervous system as well. Instead of
Mhm.
storing it there, we can, if we pay attention to like where it is in our body, how it feels in our body, then we can start to move that area and start to move it around a bit. So that's another interesting topic that we'll get to later. But do you want to tell me about some of your past Glimmers and how they have lit up the way for you.
Do I? Try and stop me. So for me, if I go back to, like, if I do relate it to my career and my working life.
Which I think is it's kind of just an easy one that, for everyone to grasp, and we can all kind of do this in some way or another.
Yeah, and I do live in a capitalist democratic society, so.
As we all do. Well,
and I don't have a trust fund.
Yeah. Shame.
Yeah, annoying. That would be a glimmer if I did. Universe.
Yeah.
So for my, I work in design and we share a background in comms and marketing, which is definitely a creative space. And I can easily and quickly, stitch back to I loved art as a kid. Like art just felt like all rules were gone and you couldn't prove or disprove the model. And I can certainly have an opinion now on what makes good art and what doesn't. But that said, everything is art and thereafter it's judgment.
And it's so subjective, right? Yeah.
In a joyous way.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. But so I remember not so much primary school, but certainly secondary school, learning about artists. And so everything at school, school wasn't really my bag, but everything at school felt very moderated and gentrified and lensed, like it was coming through 5% of the population. Personalities were teachers, like it felt like school was over-indexed with the same personality, with the same lens. And then we had the same censorship across topics and things. And then you got to the art room and it was all and sundry. The art room was like a portal for the real world to reach us.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you are learning about really unusual artistic characters, some of which in hindsight you probably would suffer a lot in the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
So luckily they've passed on.
Yeah.
But, learning about these saucy characters and fun characters and doing outrageous things in the name of art was life-changing. And then we had, oh God, and I'm just going to be outrageous and look up on my phone because I don't want to get it wrong. And it's such a big deal that we even came across this person. But there is a performance artist and her name is, I'm sure it's Jill.
Jill, performance
artist. Waiting music. Jill Orr, I think it is. Let me double check.
I was just thinking about what you were saying with art as well. In school, it's sort of like you're in this really systematic, rules structure, and then you go into art and it's like, throw it all out the window.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point. Exactly. And so the fact that the school could cope with inviting artists, artists on text or real life coming into the school was like, wait, is this, you do know that they are anti the establishment. Well, some of them, but the whole concept is all bets are off, like all rules are off. But yes, the artist name that came in to visit us at secondary school was an Australian artist called Jill Orr. And she shared her entry into performance art, and she was explaining how she was in an art room somewhere and someone had put a whole bunch of newspapers down as drop sheets, and they'd done some big mural, and then the paint had glued all the pages together. And then I think she picked, it might have even been from her artwork, she picked up the newspaper, like the strand of all of them painted together, and then the wind gathered it, and so it started doing this in the wind, like flapping in the wind or flapping. And she was like, oh my God, this is it, it's happening, like this is the art. And so she moved into being a performance artist, and she's renowned the world over, and she's done some wild stuff since then. One thing includes she I think she was living in the Netherlands, and she would watch the cranes have these huge hooks, I don't know, pulling wool bales or I don't know, some kind of freight off freighter ships. And she had this desire to sit on the hook and be submerged into the ocean. And so she went and spoke to the
Oh my God.
stevedores that worked there and talked them into it, and she did it.
Wow.
I know, such a big, and that was the art, was that thing, the moment,
It's very well, it's like taking glimmer hunting to the extreme. But it's also like that, just living in the now as well, like not getting too fixated on what will come of it later, but like really like going all in on that.
The heart's desire.
Yeah, fully.
That is the heart's desire. And it doesn't
really
make any
yourself,
sense.
isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like some people, it's vanilla ice cream.
Some people, that's a huge trigger, that what she was talking about as well. Like,
Some people would pay not to do that.
exactly.
A lot of people.
It's not going to make sense to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was super cool. Anyway, so then, so for me, learning about these artists, and then also because I could relate, like, I'm an only child, like I grew up with 2 adults, so the balance is in an adult's favor, so I grew up quite quickly. And then I could really relate to these adult concepts, of like divorce or disenchantment or, all kinds of adult themes and things. And so it just felt like realness had entered the school through this magical portal called the art room, and you got to paint as a bonus.
Yeah.
And now fast forward, like I work in design and creativity, and I work as a design strategist, and it's just my favorite place of being. So it's lateral thinking meets creativity,
Yes.
which is kind of one and the same.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that makes so much sense to me, knowing you the way I do, that like that art would have been the thing that gave you the glimmer. It like gave you
Yeah.
glimmers in school. It makes so much sense. And even just, following your career over the last few years, like I think you've really landed in the place that you were supposed to be, just from an outsider looking in. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like for the first time in my life, everything I'm doing day to day, I draw on everything I've done to this date. And I have lived a life. Like I have been a wedding planner,
100%.
a bra fitter.
Many lives in there.
Yeah, a flight attendant. I've worked on a cattle station, marketing, communications, and now this is like exactly where I need to be.
Yeah. And I think that you could, again, I don't want to make it too lofty and too like, saccharine sweet, but like I think you could look back and say that you have like followed those glimmers to get you to a point like where you're really happy or in your career and you're really fulfilled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to put words in your mouth.
No, 100%. And also just with now I'm thinking about it with glimmers and wayfinding is then going forward. Like, there's stuff, I don't know if this happens to you, and maybe because we've been doing this finer and finer, more, calibrating ourselves more finely, is there are things I see and I just almost get trapped in them, like in a really visceral way.
Like in a positive way?
Yeah, really positive. Like it just, because I love things and I love when people create things that are lovely things, and then I get to touch and hold those things. Like I love things.
Yeah.
And I feel things get a really bad rap because we're meant to be anti-material, but crafting is just craft. Whatever it is, it's craft. If someone takes the time, I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you were talking about our shared love of fashion.
Yes.
And again, like, I'm not about fast fashion and all that sort of jazz, but like, I just love clothes. I really, really do. I think we both do. And it's one of those things that, like I could just, I've noticed myself in my spare time, I will just go online and look at clothes. Like I don't even have to buy them. I just have to even like just think about different outfits in my head. Like there's something about that really gets me going. I don't know. It's like a really, and I know for other people, they're like, oh, like, how it seems really, what's the word I'm trying to say? Like,
frivolous,
like,
internalized misogynists,
all that kind of
anti-feminine,
stuff. And just
anti-female,
like, waste of time, like just really like lowbrow sort of stuff. And I'm like, it just,
bless.
I like clothes. I love choosing outfits.
Try living without clothes,
right? In this society,
see how long you get.
And it's not even about. It doesn't have to be like super, high end stuff.
No.
But just like putting them together and the creativity that comes into that and the way they make you feel when you like nail your outfit.
Oh, best day ever. And I think watching, in this great moment of time right now, watching RuPaul's Drag Race and hearing RuPaul say, we're all born naked and the rest is drag. So
I love that.
I know. And anyone who thinks they're not in drag or not in some kind of communicative with their environment, uniform or non-uniform, the more you deny it, the more you're probably a part of some kind of movement that you identify with, each to their own. But also RuPaul talks about, treat yourself like a peacock.
Yeah.
And I think that is so beautiful because we have a body. And so to deny that is kind of denying reality, which in the words of Eckhart Tolle is to create suffering. Yeah.
Well, and it also reminds me of something that Jackie Lewis from The Broad Place was talking about, people that are living that really austere sort of life. She was like, I hope they're doing it with joy. And I think that's a really interesting point too, because if you're going down that path for whatever reason, and I totally understand the environmental reasons, and I like to go to secondhand stores as well. I'm like love all that. It doesn't matter where the clothing's coming from, but it's more like how are you kind of, is it giving you joy or is it not? And like I know that's not for everybody, but
joy is definitely for everybody.
but when it comes to like clothing, I always like lean into the joy of that naturally. So that's I guess that's a little shared. wayfinding glimmer that we have, because you and I can talk about clothes for so long. We like send each other outfits.
Yeah. Emily can send me a message with like the episode content for what we need to talk about, and I'll be like, left it unread. Other stuff like we need to do admin or whatever, left unread. Then she sends like which shoes, and I'm like, bang, on my phone, like talk me through it. What kind of mood? What is this for? Like, do you own any plaid? Do you need a pleated skirt to go with this? This could work with this belt. And I am like on it like a fat kid on a
And I know
Smartie.
that I can always come to you for that. Like, it's like I can send you a code red, like when I'm literally in the store, like which one, this one, this shoe or this shoe, and you'll be like straight onto
I'm like, oh my, stop everything. Excuse me, client. You'll understand it's a loafer emergency.
And vice versa when you were in Japan.
Yes.
Yeah. With the bag. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Speaking of shopping, we're in New York very recently, like about 10 days ago. And Chris is like, and for my husband to say, we should go to a flea market.
Yeah.
Don't have to tell me twice.
Yeah.
So we're, in Midtown, and I see
in New York, was it?
Yeah, in New York.
Nice.
And I see, exactly. And we're on foot. It's like 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning, like right in Market Town zone. So I quickly Google and I find the Chelsea flea. And we walk to this flea market. It's open air in the middle of Chelsea, trestle tables. There's a little bit of undercover. And the first thing I see is costume jewelry, like this massive costume jewelry stall. And like, I don't wear a lot of costume jewelry because I don't have the patience for it. And also it looks like it's wearing me. I don't have the knack. But I'm like a magpie to this, like talk about glimmers.
Yeah.
And I will take some pics to flash up on Insta and stuff to see what I got. Like, I was beside myself. And then I was like, we must have bought like 8 pieces, 10 pieces. And then I handed it over to the lady and she's like, that's $300, which is US, on costume jewelry secondhand. And I said,
but you're in holiday mode.
I said to her, I said, thank you. I insist you take my money. Like, please. It was, and it's so, the pieces are so beautiful. Just thinking about them cheers me up. I should have worn the necklace today. I'm such a dick. It was so beautiful. And this market was filled. I've never seen a market like it. It was like they had Maison Margiela shoes, like crystal vases, records, and the good ones, which, I've talked about Instagram, like I've Instagrammed this as well on our company account. It was so good. And then cherry toweling dresses from the 80s with drop waistbands.
So good.
If they had matching bucket hats, I would have bought them, but they didn't have the matching bucket hat. And then they had diamonds off to the side in the undercover bit, and I didn't buy any diamonds, which was a damn shame. I know, loose diamonds. I love a loose diamond. I am a loose diamond. But yeah, that's the thing as well. It's the sparkle, and I don't know where that's headed, but sparkles give me, this is a dumb irony, but sparkles give me such glimmers. Just holding it, just the fact that a crystal can sparkle like that on its own volition.
Yeah.
Wow.
And think about like anything like made out of sequins and stuff. The whole idea is just to be fun and fabulous. Like that's so joyful and so, I guess it flies in the face of like seriousness and earnestness and all that. Yeah. Austerity and all that sort of stuff. It's just people are just out there making these things because they look fun and they're beautiful.
Yes, for the sake thereof. And that has been dissed for a really long time.
Yeah.
And if we want to tie it back to wayfinding, we have lost a lot of artists and crafters and creators because they can't make money out of it, or
which is like a very real,
Yeah, which is absolutely a real thing. But at the same, and it's also because it's also, I'm wondering about this with chicken or the egg. Is it that finance is really serious and so it has to be really serious? Or is it that people are really serious and they turn finance into that? If I'm thinking of accountancy or like commerce, those more serious things, because in our, with what we do, it's design, it's creativity, it's commercial design. So it's got finance, we sell the design and all good. But I wonder if, we also in our co-working office, there are accountants that work there and they're not lawyers, but they do like mergers and acquisitions and things. And I think to myself, and they're quite, heavy set, like they're very, once they tell a story, like they're locked and loaded and they cannot deviate from that story. And I think about, how do they go in client meetings? Do they ever, does the client ever drill them down on price or like it's such a different mindset. And I wonder how much is the personality that's doing that job, how much is the vocation?
Yeah.
Like, is finance serious or do serious people do finance?
Would do serious people do finance because it is serious? Like,
Yeah.
that whole thing. Yeah, I guess it's a good question. Like, I think,
Yeah.
I guess when it comes to money and finances, though, I think the consequences of that in our capitalist society are so real and so heavy. I think that's why it gets quite like a serious subject because, the consequences of that are really real as opposed to, if you like consequences of a fun dress, for example, like aren't as, I guess, they're not going to be, they're not going to have the same consequences of like not having money in the bank to pay for things.
Yeah, I know. But here's the rub.
Mm.
If we were to die tomorrow, money goes with us.
Yes.
The dress is still here.
It's true.
Because money secretly
I know.
doesn't exist.
Yeah, I
It's a
know.
man-made concept.
We've put value on it because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
only has value because society has put value on it.
And that's fun. Like once you say that, especially when you say to someone who's really into money, takes it very seriously,
Yeah.
money is a man-made concept. It's not like gravity or wind. That's
Yeah.
quite real.
Also, I think about this with time all the time. Like time is a man-made construct.
Yeah.
The birds don't know what time it is.
Mm-mm.
Anyway, I often don't know what time it is.
Nor should you.
Anyway, we are digressing a little bit.
But that's maybe a part of the wayfinding as well is when, with glimmer hunting, and this isn't just a glimmer hunting, but it's kind of actually, if you're using it as wayfinding, it's a good way to use it is tap into what do you do that you forget about time.
Yes, exactly. And that
historically.
Kind of,
oh, yes. And tell me as well.
It kind of taps into that Carl Jung quote, like I've got it here. What did you do as a child that made the hours pass like minutes? Herein lies the key to your earthly pursuits.
Oh, can you read that again? That was great.
Yeah. So, what did you do as a child that made the hours pass like minutes? Herein lies the key to your earthly pursuits.
Carl Jung for the win.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's it. That's the absolute rub. So if I think back before pre-dating art, in primary school, I used to make Cabbage Patch Kid doll clothes.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know how to sew. I'd just make it up as I went. And that would be, just time standing still, making like little jeans and stuff for Peggy.
Yeah.
But tell me about your glimmers as wayfinding.
Yeah, so I guess one of the first things that comes to mind for me is when I was a kid, probably like 7 or 8, like we had this really out of tune piano in our rumpus room downstairs, and I used to go down there and write songs on it all the time, and I would bang out these like really basic songs. It's having the time of my life. Like my brothers would just always just be doing like whatever, playing ping pong or whatever, and just in the background would be me just banging out these
baby look at me
terrible songs. I have one the timeless lyrics of when you're old you've got some gold, when you're young you got someone.
Copyright patent pending.
Like so embarrassed to say this out loud.
No, you're so brave. You're giving me tingles.
But I used to do this all the time. And then at some point, I guess because I was so unconscious as you are as a child, I went to school and I taught my friends another song about hot tea and its propensity to burn.
Oh, is that kind of a euphemism or?
No, I think
You're
I
ahead of your time.
literally saw this story about some kid that got burnt with hot tea on a plane, and then so it was more of a safety message, I think.
This one's for Jimmy.
Just who would do I think now as an adult, how would you go and write something and then go and teach other people? I'd be so embarrassed. How embarrassing. But isn't it just so cute, as a kid that you're just so unconscious and you're like, I'm getting so much joy out of this. Surely my friends will too.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, I know the pluckiness of children.
I know, but also just because they just lean into the glimmers as well. So, whilst that was not a sign that I was going to become any kind of a singer-songwriter, mostly for a variety of reasons, but the most pressing being I can't sing to save myself. But I think it might have been, the littlest glimmer that writing was going to be in my future in some way. And I had a few more examples that came up when I was at school. So when I was, I think maybe in year 6 or year 7, I wrote this poem and it got entered in this competition. And I think I might have got second or something like that in this thing. This is glimmer on glimmer because I was recently in Orange, my hometown where I'm from, and it was my I was out for high tea with my mum and my grandmother. It was my mum's 70th birthday and my grandmother's 95th birthday. And while we're at this high tea, my grandmother pulls out this piece of paper that I've got here out of her purse. And she's like, I've got something for you.
Oh,
Gran, yeah.
Gran.
And Gran hands me a copy of this poem that I wrote when I was like, I think I was like probably 12.
Did you give her the photocopy? Or did
No, I think she must have
photocopy
got a copy
She's
of it.
archiving your work.
And so then she gave it back to me. And what's also weird about this is it's called Old Timers, and it's about an old person living on their own, which is my grand situation now. It was all just very glimmery and beautiful.
Wow.
And as my mum said at the high tea, she's like, I should have known then that you were going to end up writing when you got older. So I'm a freelance writer now. So, yeah, there was like a lovely kind of
It's beautiful.
Glimmers as a wayfinding tool. Like looking back, you can see that now for sure.
Also, just at a side glance, you've done for this first sentence. I don't know if that's that thing where you do the. I can't remember what that's called.
Yeah.
It's that thing where you write the poem,
Anagram,
you write the word.
anagram?
Yeah, anagram or something like that, where you write it down.
Yeah.
But from even though it says old timers down the side, from this angle, it's GLIMERS.
Stop.
I know, right? Like, what are the odds?
We'll put it on Instagram, and you can see what we're talking about, and you can also laugh at my my poetry.
So
my
lovely.
12-year-old poetry.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. I love you had me at I was at high tea.
Which is lots of glimmers as well. Little cakes.
Oh, little cakes. They do give me glimmers, more things.
And just one other thing I want to mention about this is I do think as kids, as we've sort of talked about, I do think kids use the like OG glimmer hunters and the OGs of using them as wayfinding tools because, they have no problem just stopping and staring at a leaf for 20 minutes. If they find it interesting, if they find it's giving them joy, they'll lean into like throwing themselves in the mud, jumping in the puddles,
Yes.
They're not, they just seem to be much more at ease with the glimmers. Dr. Shafali, author of The Conscious Parent, says this is because they're closer to source energy, which and less conditioning. So something to keep in mind for us all as we're moving through the process.
Yeah, and it's circling back to, if I could be so bold as to give advice, is, unsolicited advice, is that thing. And that's why, like with the vet and the animal thing. And so if someone comes near Isla and says, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like that sentence just never exists in our house because, one, you can't answer it. And two, it's corralling your mind. You don't need to and that's kind of none of our business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Time will tell. But so following the glimmers with the 20 minutes on one leaf, it doesn't need to be corralled or interpreted into commerciality.
No, it doesn't mean then that you have to go be a botanist.
Yeah.
It just could be,
Could be you're into waste removal.
Yeah. Be anything. But if it lights you up, it lights you up. And we can just leave it at that sometimes. Again, we don't have to overcomplicate everything and turn it into something bigger or greater than it is. But it is just a fun thing to also look back on some things and, think about how they got us. Yeah.
Gorgeous. Well, thank you for listening today, guys. And if you have any fun anecdotes or you want to tag us or share us in how you've used glimmers as wayfinding or how you are using them or historically how you have, hit us up. We would love to hear about it.
Absolutely. We'd love to know. And if you liked listening to this episode and you think somebody else might like listening to it, why don't consider sharing it or leaving us a review on Apple, Spotify or YouTube.
Till next time. Thank you.
Bye.